In a world of highlight reels and perfect stories, welcome to Kept and Restored, hosted by Lisa and Kanan, two women who have had to reinvent themselves more than once. One was kept from falling, one needed to be restored. Together, they tell the truth about the messy middle. Unfiltered, unpolished, nothing off limits. If life has changed you, broken you, or forced you to become someone new, you belong here. This is Kept and Restored.
Welcome to this week's episode of Kept and Restored. I am Lisa.
I'm Kanan.
And we are excited to have you along with us on this journey. We're taking a deep dive today. We are. We're going to take a deep dive. This week, we are talking about the ledge, and we want to quick refer back to episode 2. In episode 2, we talked about the versions of ourselves that just couldn't survive. And it was this sort of big idea of sometimes we create versions of ourselves to survive a season or just to get through the day, And so we talked about sometimes the things that we build to hold us together actually end up falling apart.
Yeah.
So today we're kind of building on that somewhat. We've been alluding quite a bit through episodes 1 and 2 to season in Canaan's life where she really felt like, okay, wow, everything is falling apart this time. And so again, the title of this episode is The Ledge, where we're going to be talking about sometimes you find yourself on a ledge.
Yeah.
And then you find yourself falling.
Yeah.
There's other times you might find yourself on a ledge and you feel yourself kind of held up against that cliff wall as you wait out the storm.
Yeah.
But today we do want to focus on those times in life when you are right on the edge.
Yeah.
And Kana's going to share not only her story, but then for sure at the end, we're going to and throughout, but we're going to be talking a lot about how it could have been written differently.
Yeah.
And also the way it was written.
Yeah.
The story's not over. And what God can do within all of that. So let's dive in, my friend. What do you think?
We are going to dive in.
Yes,
we are.
Yes.
It is a deep dive, that's for sure.
This
This is not an episode for kids. Let's just be clear about that, because it's a heavy one for sure. And so we'll start with just what my life looked like before this particular ledge. And I want to just say that I've been on a lot of ledges in my life. This just happens to be one of them. And probably just because it's the most recent and it was the most public and the most visible, that, I think it's scary to talk about our stories. And so this is really vulnerable for me. But my prayer is that it can help even just one person, because it was a very lonely time for me. So before this particular ledge in my life, I was on staff at a very large church in Florida. I was leading worship every weekend. I was, helping coordinate and do all the things in the worship ministry at my church. And we were making a decision if we would move to Nashville for another ministry opportunity. I had been here in Nashville, recording and doing some things for writing rooms and and then I got a call one day from a church here locally that was looking for a worship arts creative director. And so my husband Troy and I started really praying through what that would look like. And obviously it was a big decision. And my husband, was born and raised in Florida. His family, his roots, he had never lived anywhere else in his life. And so it was a very, big decision. But it felt like God was telling us to step into something that he had for us. And so we made the decision to move here to Nashville. And at the same time, I was still internally struggling. I had again, like I said, this wasn't my first ledge. So I was still reeling from all of the things that had happened in the past and, you know, just physical sickness and things that had happened in my life. And so the internal struggle was big. Um, so we moved here, and this is where Lisa and I met on staff at a church here, and we were in ministry together. And, um, you know, I'll say the enemy is really crafty. He's really crafty. And we talked about this in episode 1. You know, it just is packaged in a different box and a different bow. And, you know, I have struggled with sexual sin all my life. And I really had amounted myself to nothing more than a man only wanted me for my body, my looks, or what I could give to them physically. And so I was still internally struggling in that way. And so we came on staff, and, um, you know, some things at the church were yucky, and we're not going to go into that, but it's just, you know, part of church sometimes. Um, and we ended up leaving. And I'll say that during the time at the church, there was a person that was on staff, you know, that was showing interest in me, if I guess we can call it. Trying to talk about things that were more personal than we should. And you know, while on staff at the church, nothing happened. But after we left the church, he continued to reach out, and I continued to respond. And let me just be very clear about my story. I do not put blame on anyone else. The blame that the story that I'm telling is my story. I will not tell his side because I don't really know what was going on in the mind. But um, we started having a pretty deep relationship, and I stepped outside of my marriage, and that was part of the mask that I was wearing, right? Of let me just act like everything's fine and all is well, but I was hiding and keeping in secret so many things, and secret meeting spots and secret phone calls and secret text messages and all of these things that were just happening. And I'll say that I didn't feel like myself in this time. There was a lot of manipulation involved. Um, so my husband and this man were friends, and they had shared with each other struggles that they were having in their marriages. And it seemed to be, and I will not speak for another person, but it seemed to be like all of the things that my husband was telling him that we were struggling or that I was struggling with, he swooped in and started doing all the things that my husband wasn't. And so that's why I say the enemy is very crafty, because he will come in and make you think, hey, look, you're getting all the things that you've been wanting, that you've been desiring, and now look, you have it. And so it was, I mean, I was living under so much shame and so much guilt, but at the same time, on a high. I was on a total high. It was like a drug high. And that's what lust and all of those things do. They create this high. And so I thought that I was untouchable. I was bulletproof. I could do anything and nobody knew. People knew. People knew. My husband knew. People knew. And so I made the very sad decision to leave my marriage. And I left my husband for this other man. And this was a high level leader at our church. And he was still on staff at the church. I was not anymore, but he was. And we started a full blown relationship, and both left our partners. He was also married. And we both left our marriages and came together. And what I can say is during this time, first of all, now being out of it, I know that it was a demonic assignment. I know that this was an assignment straight from the enemy. So much as I, once I left my home with my husband and moved out and moved to an apartment and started a whole new life, like all of a sudden, literally blew up my whole family's life. I mean, there is no other way. It was like a stick of dynamite just got dropped in our lives and blew up. And so it affected my children. It affected my parents. It affected my husband. It affected every one of my friends. It affected everyone around me. And of course, I retreated from friends because, you know, if I felt like friends actually knew what was going on, I knew they were going to call me out, and I was on a high and I didn't want to be called out. And so I couldn't hear. It was like, I don't even know how to, this is crazy because it manifested itself into physical, but my ears, when I left and got into this situation, I couldn't hear. Like my ears, like when you're on an airplane, like my ears were clogged up, my eyes were foggy. Um, I just, this is not a person that I typically would be attracted to. So then I say this, and I've told you this the other day, the enemy makes the unattractive attractive. He does. That's why sin is fun. Let's be honest.
Absolutely.
Like, the after effects of sin are really not fun, but in the moment, it's fun.
Have you ever heard that saying that your sin will take you farther than you wanted to go, and it will leave you there longer than you wanted to stay?
So true.
And then it drops you.
Yep. And that's exactly what happened. So we ended up, you know, getting married for a very short time. Now, this is all during COVID, and the world had shut down, and, you know, we're now living, you know, built a home and lived in a home together. And he was already a pretty heavy drinker. And of course, I have had addiction issues all my life. I mean, honestly, I would have used anything to numb all the stuff that I felt. So alcohol, though, wasn't really like my substance of choice. You know, I would have much rather done other things than that. And so during COVID, also the guilt and the shame, and now coming to grips with the fact that I had blown up my life. You know, when you're on the high, everything's like, okay, this is great. This is going to be great. I'm out of this marriage that I thought was horrible. And here we go. But then as you get quiet and now you're in this new life, you realize, oh, this is not at all what I thought it was going to be. And my pride, yes, lots of pride, would not allow me to tell anyone that I had messed up. Because again, I had made this decision. I had blown up my life. I had walked away from my husband and my family. And the last thing you want to do is call somebody and say, oops, I made the wrong decision. And so my pride came into play a lot there because I didn't want anybody to think that I thought that I had made a mistake. I had done everything right. And this person really made me believe that we were doing what God wanted us to do.
Wow.
Yeah. And
That's it.
so much as that he said, I think that we're going to have a ministry together through this.
Probably.
Yep.
I don't know why you wouldn't.
Yep. So, I mean, again, the enemy's crafty because there were moments where I thought, oh, yeah, that's a really good story. Like, no, but what? Like, that makes absolutely no sense. No, we did it completely wrong. Backward, couldn't be more backwards than what God wants us to do. So anyway, all of that to say, I, through the shame, through the guilt, through the heaviness, I started drinking really, really heavily. Now, in the beginning, we lived separately. And even in those times of living separately, there was a lot of abuse. And there was physical, mental, emotional, spiritual abuse. Um, Again, I remember even my kids, knew that some of these things were going on. And they're like, what? This is not, my mom wouldn't let anybody touch her. Like, what is happening? But I was not myself. I wasn't myself. I don't know. It's so hard to explain because I can't really get like a clear picture. But I mean, it's almost like I was standing outside of myself watching me live my life.
Hmm.
And I was going, who is that? Who is that person living that life? And it's not the life I wanted. It's not the life I would have chosen in a right mind, but it's the life I chose. I mean, in that moment. And so, started drinking very, very, very heavily. And the drinking was trying to numb everything that I was feeling, all the shame, all the guilt, because even though it's the enemy that condemns, right? Isn't it funny? He leads us into this sinful place of our lives and then he condemns us. He's like,
Right.
hey, here's the path. Go this way. It's great for you. But then when you get there, I'm going to tell you how wrong you were.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just wild how he works, And so, and again, his tricks worked on me at the time. They did. And so the drinking became way, 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 way in excess. And by the end of all of this, I was drinking about a bottle this big of 150 proof spiced rum to my head every night. And I would set my clock to 6 o'clock every single night because I thought, well, if I don't drink during the day, then I'm not an alcoholic because I'm not day drinking. But the problem was that became less and less, um, I became less able to function during the day because my body was in withdrawals from alcohol.
Mm.
And I started having horrible shakes, almost like I had Parkinson's. I mean, I couldn't even sign my own name. I couldn't sign a check. I couldn't, honestly, I don't even know how I kept my business going during this entire time. I have no idea, except God was still there protecting me in ways that I couldn't see. And so I there was a night, now we're married and we're living in this home, and my son was 17 at that time. And this particular night, the man said, when Marcus gets home, I want him to come and talk to me about XYZ. So I texted Marcus, and poor Marcus, I mean, and his daughter, like, they had to hear the the fighting and the arguing and the yelling and the things that were happening. And so not only did I blow up my life from my other home, now the life that I was living was blowing up that home. Right. And so it was like the domino effect. And so I texted Marcus that night and I said, hey, buddy, he wants to talk to you when you get home. And he said, I don't talk to him. I said, I understand. I just wanted to let you know. And so Marcus got home that night and he said, Mom, go to your room. And I did. Now I was pretty drunk, pretty drunk. But what I heard him say to the man, if you ever touch my mom again, I'll kill you. And in that moment, whatever enemy's assignment had been assigned to me, whatever that demonic assignment was, it was like a whoosh, just the words from my son. I could hear, I could see. And that's really scary, actually. It's really scary when all of a sudden you can hear and see all the things that you've done.
Mm.
Because I think the enemy had put scales on my eyes and he had put earmuffs on
Mm.
so that I couldn't really see the truth of what I had done, and that it was just masking it all.
Mm.
And so for whatever reason that night, I mean, it was God. It's not for whatever reason. It was God. And God used my son to save my life.
Mm.
And so I just want to say thank you, Marcus.
Mhm. Mhm.
Um,
Mm.
and I don't even know if he really knows.
Mm.
You know, I've told him, but I don't know if he really knows that God used my son to save my life.
Mm.
So this was in 2022.
Mm.
And the next morning, he took his daughter to school, and I called my ex-husband. And I said, I'm in trouble. And he said, I know. And he said, come home.
Mm.
He said, my door is always open to you. And I packed up my dog, who had been used to, it was just the best. But she was with me throughout the whole thing, bless her heart. I packed up my stuff, as much stuff as I could,
Mhm.
and I drove home. And I can tell you that, well, from that day forward, I haven't left. I've stayed, and Troy and I got remarried
Mhm.
last September. And Troy has been the biggest picture of God's mercy and grace in my life in human form, right? Because this walk of the Christian life is a walk of faith. We don't get to see Jesus in front of us. We don't, you know, it's a faith walk. But it was almost like God knew that I needed to see it tangibly,
Mm.
to believe that his mercy and his grace were enough for me, because I honestly believed in those years of my life that if I had died, I was going to hell.
Mm.
And no one would have been able to tell me any differently, because I knew what I was doing. I knew that I was wrong, and I continued to do it anyway. And that is where I thought, yeah,
Mm.
I'm just going to go to hell.
Mm.
And these are the nights where I would just beg God to just take me.
Mm.
I didn't want to live anymore. This life was too hard. And what's funny is the life is really what I had created.
Mm.
I had made the mess of my life.
Mm.
So I was asking him to really release me or remove me from all of the bad decisions that I had made. And the hard part is that when we walk through things or when we make really bad decisions, there's still consequences.
Mm.
And they don't just get erased. The consequences don't get erased. It affected the relationship with my children. You know, and Troy, they had to learn how to trust me again, because I had become very, very untrustworthy. And so we're now 4 years in, that we got back together, and, not even close to a year of being remarried. But that is who God is.
Mm.
He is a restorer, and he is a redeemer of the things that we lose, even if the decisions were our own that made us lose whatever it is that we lost. And I lost my family. I lost my husband, who loved me more than anyone in the world. But what is amazing is that I never lost Troy.
Mm.
And what he did was amazing, because those years that I was gone, he worked on himself.
Mm.
And he said to me, I know that you didn't leave, like this wasn't all on you.
Mm.
this wasn't just your issue. Like, there were things that he needed to work on in himself to be a better husband, to be a better dad. And all of those years that he never dated,
Mm.
he never moved on. He just told me that he believed that God was going to bring me home.
Mm.
And so he said, when you got home, I wanted to be a better version of myself for you when you got home.
Mm.
And yeah, I mean, that has just been the most beautiful picture of God in my life, is that God worked so much in Troy's heart that when I came home, he wasn't so calloused that he wouldn't give me a shot.
Mm. Mm.
He drew me right back in with arms wide open and said, I love you and I've always loved you. And I know that this wasn't you, that it was the enemy, that it was whatever crazy who was going on in your life. And so,
Mm.
um, yeah, I'm gonna let you talk for a second.
Yeah.
Because it's just a lot. It's a lot.
Let you
Yeah.
gather yourself for a
Yeah.
second.
Mhm.
Yeah, and I really appreciate you sharing. And I know that's, before we hit play, she's like, whew, here we go.
Yeah.
And you want to use your story. You want to Romans 8:28 over whatever you go through. And it still takes courage. And I think if you haven't gone through what somebody's gone through, it's very easy to judge. And it's very easy to say, I would never. I just think that's a waste of air. I really do. The point, I think if you haven't been restored from that, but you've had other really impactful sin, it's just got a different set of circumstances, but it's the same God saying, this is the way.
Yeah.
And if you go this way, then you're on your own, and I'll be here when you get back. Just like Troy. That's
Yeah.
right. I could totally
It's
see
so
that,
that's
like
it.
being
Yeah.
like, symbol of that, of God's love.
Yeah.
Something I think is really from a kept perspective. And again, got to say this at the beginning, but uh, kept and restored is about our lives and
Yeah.
how the choices that we've made and the ways that we've interacted with God. And so for me, for the most part, uh, my journey has been to stay close to God and be kept by Him from going through those things.
Yeah.
Because I got Him at an early age, and because it made sense to me to live His ways, it prevented me from going through
Yeah.
what He did. But we're both rescue stories. God
That's right.
rescued me from going through the kinds of things like that need restoration, and God rescued Canaan from a pit. So we're both rescue stories.
That's right.
Um, so a question that I had while you were telling your story, and I was writing down over here. Um, can you think of a moment when you say that it wasn't you and you couldn't hear, you had scales, and so you definitely know it was an assignment of the enemy.
Mhm.
Can you think of a crack
Mm.
that allowed him the access?
Yeah. And let me say this as well, because that can sound a lot like an excuse, right? When I
Mm.
say it wasn't me. No, it was me. Like, it was me, but it wasn't the real me. It was um because I made the decisions, and take 100% responsibility for what I did and the decisions that I made. But I also know, on top of that, it was an assignment.
So right. So
So
when were you on the
yeah,
ledge? Like that moment was pivotal
yeah,
because you still could have,
yeah.
but when
I could
you
have stopped it.
right.
Yeah, I could have stopped it. And so I think the ledge was really, the enemy will make you think that, oh, it's just a friend, and you guys are just, you're just sharing your life, and you're just sharing stories, and you're just asking for prayer, and So the ledge was when I started having way too many deep personal conversations with another man when I'm married.
Mm-hmm.
That was the crack, because the enemy will use that all day long. He is like, I mean, he's listening. He's listening to he's watching everything that we do. And as soon as there were some either inappropriate things said or conversations that happened that were too personal, that really he should have never known about me and I should have never known about him when we're both married to other people, the enemy was like, I got him. I got him. And he knew that. So he's like, okay, well, let's share more and let's share more. And then now let's bash our spouses, right?
Yeah.
And say all the things that they haven't been doing and how miserable we are. And so that was the crack and that was the ledge. And I had a choice. I had a choice to either shut it down right then, cut it off, completely stop the behavior, or to continue moving in it. And my choice was to continue moving.
I wonder though if it's like just because I was around for this part of everything.
Yep.
Not near, because we were in different churches at that time. So
Yep.
nothing had happened between us. It was just
I wasn't in church at all. I felt like if I went to church, I was going to get struck down. So
the safety of all other congregants.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're kind of identifying the ledge. Obviously, we didn't talk about this ahead of time. You're kind of identifying the ledge as, wow, we're like two in each other's worlds. I would suggest, from a kept perspective, that the ledge was actually further back, because I think you were over the ledge by then.
Yeah.
So what I mean by that, the Word of God has so many, safeguards in it, not to spoil our fun, not to be old fashioned. It's like, do you want to have the most fulfilling relationship of your life in your marriage? Well, who's going to say no? I mean, other than like a piece of toilet paper. So used. So anyway, so, majority of people are gonna say, yes, I want to be fulfilled in my marriage. And so the fulfillment in the marriage is, has to be safeguarded way before that ledge.
You're right.
To me, you're already over it.
Yep.
And so in love, God says, don't.
It's boundaries.
Don't. Have these boundaries.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be able to scramble for a boundary when you're starting to escalate into a high.
Yes.
It's just not possible.
Yeah. So I would have had to have made a decision before the high kicked in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Before these, like the first sign of, but actually not even that. Like how, like what boundaries, and I'm going to let you talk about it now, because I know she's got really great boundaries now that, are in place. So I'm going to let her speak to that in a moment. But the thought that's coming to me through all of this is, in marriage, it is very easy to focus on what our spouse is not.
That's correct.
Rather than what our spouse is. That is just transport ourselves back to the garden.
Yeah.
In the garden, God said, you can have anything you want except this one tree.
Yep.
Well, what did Eve fixate on? What did the serpent?
Dang it, Eve.
Yeah, right.
Yeah.
Right. But like the serpent slithered in, but she already had to be thinking like, let me look over here. I wonder why God's telling us we can't.
Yep.
And so when the serpent teed it up, he slithered into her crack.
That's true.
So like if she hadn't already let her defenses down. Now, I don't know whether Mother Eve in the garden could think thoughts like these, but it's still what happened.
Yeah.
And it's still what is still happening. There's a way, and God says, walk in it.
Yeah.
Whenever you get 1 degree off, if you leave that 1 degree unattended, pretty soon you find yourself over here, and you are really feeling like, I know how I got here, but I can't believe this is my life. Explosion and everything Canaan was just sharing. It's not there's not going to be a high in being a degree off and coming back, because when you come back, now you're back with the same spouse who wasn't sizzling for you, you know? And
Yeah,
so
it's true.
I'm just going to suggest to you, I've been a married person, 2 marriages. My first husband divorced me. My second husband passed away. So I've been married for almost 40 years, all
Yeah.
told.
Yep.
And I'll tell you, the snap back is to stop focusing on what they're not.
So,
I find, here's something else I find, and maybe this will be something we'll talk about more in the future, but a lot of times I find, and I'm just going to say, people that are within their first 7 to 10 years of marriage, a lot of time the spouses bond with other spouses about what their spouses are not.
it's so true.
Right? I remember
So
doing that
true.
when I was in my 30s. I was with this really great group of friends. We were all married couples, and my girlfriends and I would get together and we would make fun of each other's husbands. That sounds like I want to puke in my mouth right now saying that.
Yeah.
I don't think the men did that as much. The men were way caught up in porn.
Mhm.
And they were not telling each other until the wives made them. So it was,
Yeah,
you
it's a
know,
lot.
marriage can be so tough. But if we were, instead of behind their backs tearing them down, like, I'm not proud of saying that,
Yep.
but I learned how to stay off that ledge because I was on the ledge and I'd fallen over with my friends. And did that make my marriage better?
Nope.
Of course not. How's God going to work when I've chosen to go over here?
Yep.
And that's even from a kept perspective. Like, we were still in small group together. We were going to church together. We were raising kids together. We had fun, good times together,
Yep.
but there was just so many things. And it was true of him for me as well. And that boundary is, are you perfect? Of course
Mhm.
not.
Yeah.
Well, how are you choosing perfection over here?
Yep.
Yeah, how are you demanding that? And so it's that same protective barrier that you intentionally put in place, not when you are approaching a ledge and not when you're on it. By then it's too late.
Yeah.
And that's what was coming to me as you were saying
No,
that. Like,
that's so true.
the opening that we give,
Yeah.
man, like, it gets exploded.
Yes, it does.
You know, because he's not going to sit there and say, "Now, are you sure you really wanted?" You know, the enemy is like, "Are you
No.
sure you want to do
He's
this?"
like swinging the door wide open.
Come
And I
on in,
think,
the weather's fine.
yeah, and a reminder too is that the enemy comes after marriage so hard because it is the picture
Mhm.
of Christ and the church,
Mhm.
right? And so he hates it. That's why he comes after
Mhm.
our marriages so hard, because it is that picture of union, unity, covenant, commitment. And so he's like, if I can, get this, then, separate. And that's
Right.
what he wants to do. All he wants to do is separate. And he's not doing it really to hurt us. He's doing it all to hurt God. He hates God. He hates that he got thrown out of heaven. He hates all the things. And so what he wants to do is hurt God. And if he can hurt God through our marriages, that's what he's going to try.
Mhm.
And so, we were talking about boundaries and all of these things. And I had to put very clear and serious safeguards in my life after I got home with Troy. And those boundaries may seem very extreme to some people that don't know my story. But for instance, obviously, I'm a real estate agent. And, there's always lenders or people that want to take you out for meals or coffee or, I mean, it can be anybody really. But I have made the decision that, and I tell them, and thankfully, a lot of people, they're like, that makes total sense. So I will not have lunch or coffee or anything with a man alone. I won't. Because of my tendency, my past, my struggle with sexual sin, I don't even want to even give myself an inch to go with, not because I don't trust myself.
Right.
That's
Right.
absolutely not it.
Mhm.
But the Bible says to not even let your good be evil spoken of, or to even give the appearance of evil. And so if somebody were to know my story, which it was very public, so a lot of people do, and they saw me sitting somewhere with a guy by myself,
Yeah.
they're going to talk and they're going to say, "Oh, I saw Keenan somewhere," and I don't even want to give the enemy not even a degree.
Yeah.
Like not even a milli, whatever you want to call it. What do you call it?
Little thing.
Yeah, little thing. I don't want to give him any crack, any opening, any appearance, anything. And so the other thing I want to say is this time in my life was very lonely because, when you think about affairs and you think about men, right? You think men have affairs and not, but then if a woman has an affair, she's a whore. Right? If it's a man, it's like, oh, men will be men. But if it's a woman, you're now a whore. And that's just that's just society, right? That's just what people think. And so because it's almost like, well, we expect men to do it because all they do is think about sex all day, every minute, but for women, it's for us, it's really more emotional, right? It wasn't about sex for me. It was, I felt wanted. I felt pretty. I felt excited again. I felt all the fireworks and all the things. And it was much more emotional for me. Yes, there was physical, but the biggest part for me was I had felt a disconnect emotionally from my husband. And so this person now was coming in and filling this emotional void. And so I just want to talk really quickly to any woman that has ever walked through something like this. And I just want to say that you're not alone. You're not alone. It's really hard to talk about because of that stigma, because of the what people will say. And it is what they say. Like, that's just the truth. And you're just going to have to get to a point where you get honest. If you're walking through it right now, reach out to us. Seriously, DM us, reach out to us. If you got my number, text me. We will walk with you. We will talk with you. We'll go on that journey with you of what that looks like, because it's a scary place to be. And I really feel like if I would have had someone that either called me out or like really called me out, or that I could go to that I knew had walked through this before, then I would have someone to go to for advice, and maybe I wouldn't have fallen off the ledge. But I didn't have that in my life at the time because I had isolated myself so greatly. So if you are in isolation right now and you are full of shame and full of guilt because maybe you're on the ledge, maybe you're right, you're teetering, like maybe you're in a relationship with a man that is very emotional but hasn't turned physical, or you're just thinking, ooh, this looks like it could be nice, reach out, please, because I will use everything that God has taught me and shown me to walk anyone through a journey, because I also know how lonely it was because I didn't know anyone to call that I didn't feel like would just shun me or judge me or just say, like, you're stupid. I mean, seriously. And I was stupid. So, like, all of those things would have been true, but in the moment, it would not have been helpful. I needed someone to actually hear where I was, why I was there, and help me get back up. And rebuild. And so don't just suffer in silence. Get real, get honest, and know that there are other people that have walked through stories like this, and it does not make you broken, and it does not make you not able to be restored. You can still be restored. You could still be redeemed because Jesus died for your sin. And it's sin. It is. Even if you've just started on the ledge and you're starting to have personal, deep conversations with another man or woman, if you're a man, you've already really opened the door, and the crack has been created. And so I just want to say that if this resonates with anyone and you just have questions or you want advice or you want prayer, DM us, talk to us, because
Yeah.
that's why we're here. That's why we're doing this, is to help, not to just air. I mean, believe me, I don't want to just sit here and air my dirty laundry to everyone, but if it will help even just one person, that's why I've chosen to share my story. So,
Well, again, thank you.
yeah.
Thank you so much. And so that ledge is a real place.
Yeah, it is.
It is a place to be avoided. Picture a sign on the trail and it says, don't veer off. There's going to be some people that are like, take that as a triple dog dare,
Yeah.
or think that this path isn't going to lead anywhere. But that's the beauty of God's way.
Yeah.
Staying on that path, when he puts those signposts in, it just prevents the pain of that particular decision. But if you find yourself over here, God can defy the laws of nature.
That's right.
Right? So you're in a free fall and you should die.
Yeah.
But the hand of God comes and says, I can use you still.
Yeah.
And that seems too good to be true, but that really is.
I mean, there was no way in a million years that I ever thought I would be used again.
Right.
Yeah. And now I am back in ministry and
Mhm.
doing this and leading worship. And, so I would have never thought in a million years that I would be where I am today.
So it's not the end of your story. It's
right.
bad right now if you're there.
Yeah.
But it's not the end of your story. And I just want to speak blessings of encouragement over all those in the sound of our voice who have consistently chosen not to veer off.
Yeah.
And just continue to, speak that encouragement over you as well.
Yeah.
It's God's ways lead someplace. And now, with Canaan and Troy, it's so cool to be on the phone with her and hear him in the background.
Yeah.
That's the way. That's what they committed to be and to do, and God restored.
Yeah.
So that's the theme of our podcast, kept and restored.
Yeah.
And God is going to be faithful through it all. Yeah. And so we thank you for joining us and inspecting your heart. And we look forward to bringing the next bit of content on our next episode. Yeah. Have a great week.
See you later.
Thanks for listening to Kept and Restored. If this episode resonated, follow, share, and join us next week for another honest conversation. You're not alone in your kept or restored season. See you next time.